During the previous episode, I went over how I constructed my modified wood chipper discharge chute for the Champion 3-inch wood chipper. Today, we're going to be putting that modification to the test to see if it's going to hold up. Let's go.
We've got the chipper loaded. We've got the gas in the trailer because yours truly didn't think to put gas in it before we loaded it up. We're gonna go see if it works. Let's go. Here we are at the brush pile. Big tank of gas. Gloves.
One problem that became apparent with the wood chipper discharge chute modification was the size. I didn't account for the space inside of the trailer, which I was intending to use to transport the chipper. This made it very difficult to load and required 2 people in order to avoid placing undue pressure on the discharge chute, which would bend or break it. Had I have been aware of this situation at the beginning of the project, I probably would have altered my design.
Seems easier to unload. Fire this thing on.
I tested the chipper discharge chute by initially putting some smaller pieces of wood through it. It handled those with no problem and directed them into the trailer. One thing that I was not expecting was the amount of wind that was created by the flywheel on the chipper. This caused the chips to sort of fly around and swirl. They ended up all over the trailer, all over the four-wheeler, and you definitely needed to wear eye protection because debris was kind of being thrown around everywhere, so it was a lot messier than I initially had anticipated. Even things fed through the top hopper, as well as through the main 3-inch chute, were able to be chipped and dispelled through the discharge chute into the trailer. Despite kind of flying around everywhere and making a huge mess, the wood chips were actually a pretty nice quality. The shape and size of the wood chips dispelled from the discharge chute were very similar to the chips that were discharged when the chute was not in use, as when you have the bag attached to it as per the manufacturer's recommendations. I didn't find that the modification of the wood chipper chute added any consistency changes to the wood chips at all. The unfortunate part about the discharge chute modification is that it really didn't change how the overall chipper performed in terms of being able to load stuff into it and just operate it. It continues to be very finicky, and it's best to pre-cut your wood into as straight of pieces as possible when you're trying to load them both into the top hopper and into the 3-inch wide chute on the front of the machine. Also, it's important to talk about the safety concerns with this modification. Before I even added the chute, I went ahead and I took off the rubber flaps on the main hopper, as well as the rubber safety flap on the 3-inch chute on the front of the machine. This causes the potential for items to fly up, especially upward out of the hopper, as the flywheel tends to spin and shoot things upwards. The additional safety concern comes with the chute, because now you also have things being projected through the air via the chute. Ideally, a wood chipper should be one that you don't have to remove safety features in order to be able to tolerate using it. And now that I've added this chute, it makes it even more unsafe. So really, I should be wearing some type of a helmet that has a mesh face guard to prevent any projectiles from hitting me in the face for optimal safety. If you overload the top hopper, especially with a lot of stringy material, it'll create a clog inside of the chute, in which case you have to turn off the chipper and manually unclog it. That's not a big deal because there is a pipe strap that holds the pieces together, so as long as you have a tool on site, you can loosen it, manually dislodge the clog, and then reattach it with no problems.
Well, I could say I'm pretty happy with how this thing works. I think One of the things that I would change before I go to use it for the whole day would be to either put a piece of plywood or something just over the top, maybe to about here, just to prevent that kind of spiraling of the wind and the blowback of the chips, or even like a tarp or something here just to kind of hold that in a little bit better. You can see chips kind of got sprayed all over the four-wheeler, so I might even see if there's some way that I can block this off on the trailer itself. But the chute is working really, really well. I'm really happy with it, and I think it's going to make things a lot faster and a lot easier. That thing is messy, but it works. It gets them in there. It kind of sprays stuff all over the place. I think next time I go to use this, I'd take a little tarp and put it over here just to help with the blowback so not as much blows out. But the chips were all still coming out. It was doing a nice job. So I'm pretty happy with that. As long as the thing doesn't get clogged. If it gets clogged, then you're gonna have a tough time getting in there to unclog it. That's the only real bad thing about it. But I'm pretty happy with it. To be honest, it's raining. We're done.
Even though the modified wood chipper discharge chute made the job a lot faster, it still didn't improve the overall performance of the wood chipper itself, which has a hopper which quite frankly is just too small and is quite irritating to operate. We used this chipper chute a few more times before we finally just gave up on it. I don't know if it was the cold temperatures or the repeated impact of the chips, but eventually the chute just disintegrated and fell off. I don't think that the aluminum was the appropriate material to choose. It should have been something with steel. Rather than trying to modify something else, I decided to fix the problem once and for all. Subscribe before you go. We'll see you on the next one.